To another show, man. NFL Talk with Jay Money. We here with our guy Steve Merril as well, man. He talked me into doing the Westgate Super Contest. I'm glad we did. Let's keep it going. We'll try to put together a show as well for all of our Westgate contest picks. No matter what contest you're playing, they're all, you know what I'm saying, they all got picks that you're trying to put in. So we're trying to cash, man. Or if you're just betting NFL line straight up, we're always trying to cash, Steve, on this channel. We had a really good week one. But it's on to week two now. What's up with you, Steve? How you been doing, my brother?
Yeah, I mean, not only did the contest go well for us, our pick five contest went 4-1. You and I both cashed. You had the Vikings outright underdog winner. I had the Seahawks outright underdog winner. But yeah, it was a good week overall, Jay. I went 5-0 on Sunday and Monday for my clients at wagertalk.com, and we talked about this last week, right? Don't read too much into week one of the regular season because it's week four of the preseason as far as I'm concerned. And I always used to say it's week 5 of the preseason. Now we only have 3 preseasons, so it's week 4. And you can make an argument that makes it even more random, right? And Dave Koken actually sent us all a message yesterday, which I thought was really interesting, that 11 teams had a starting quarterback in week 1 that did not take a single snap in the preseason. Those teams went 3-8. So I think that tells you what you need to know right there. And you got to be very careful. We'll talk about these games here for week 2, but take a contrarian approach this week. Don't read too much into week 1.
Yeah, that makes sense right there. It makes sense. Let's get some cash, man. I'm a natural contrarian anyway, so there's no problem with that, Steve. But let's talk. What do you say here? Let's talk about some games here. Starting out with the Thursday night game here, Steve. We got the Chargers. This line opened up at 3.5. It's since pushed up to 4. Maybe 4.5 out there. Obviously, with the Keenan Allen news out there that he's most likely not going to play, pulled up with that hamstring there. What do you think here? Is this a Patrick Mahomes Chiefs revenge tour against the whole league here, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. You can almost say, like, the Chiefs are no longer the overrated team where you get no value every week in the NFL. I think that's going to probably at some point be the Buffalo Bills this year. Buffalo obviously looks like the team to beat. Impressive win last Thursday. So you can make a case that maybe you're getting some value with the Chiefs. And I think this line was a little short. In fact, Arthur DeCesar was on Wager Talk today, wagertalk.com today with me when I was on that show, and he mentioned that they opened this line 3 at the Westgate. It quickly went to 3 minus 120, then they pushed it up to minus 4. So they got some early Chief money, and I do think maybe the Chiefs are a little underloved now. The Chargers are kind of a hot team. They covered last week, but keep in mind the Raiders had a 3-0 turnover deficit in that game and still only lost by 5 points. And now the Chargers have to travel, short week. We've seen throughout the years, now that we have a lot of Thursday night games and a good sample size, that when you have a competitive game, the road team is usually at a disadvantage. I think it makes a lot of sense. Both teams are playing on a 3-day turnaround, 3 days of rest, but the road team has to travel, and they basically lose an extra day of preparation because of that. So I can see why somebody's coming on Kansas City so far.
Yeah, that's a good point there, man. It seems like the Chargers kind of figured them out, though. They are 3-1 against the spread last 4 games versus them. Obviously 2-2 straight up, but those 2 losses came in overtime. So it's kind of crazy. It seems like the Chargers just know how to hang with the Chiefs here. This won't be a game that I'm betting. In theory, you get the revenge for the Chiefs, but like I said, they went 1-1 last year. So, and the home team seems to win the game over the past 4 times as well. So I don't know. ATS wise, Chargers usually know how to keep it close with them. Wouldn't be a bit surprised if they lost this game by 3 points. It would be really fitting for this game because the Chargers not going to give up. I'm one of those guys, Steve, that's hyping the Chargers up this year. I think Herbert's one of the new faces of the NFL. They got a quarterback for the defense over there in Khalil Mack. I like what this Chargers team is doing, but I don't like them enough. I don't take toss-up games, especially in the NFL. I can see this one going either way, so I won't have much on this one. Steve, any thoughts on that total of 54?
Well, it's hard to not to make a case for the over, right? I mean, both teams pretty good quarterbacks, pretty good offenses, and Kansas City basically half the defensive players did not play there last year. So Arizona didn't look too good last week. They still put up 21. Kansas City put up 44. Chiefs had over 450 yards in that game. So quick turnaround. It's hard to imagine either defense has much time to get ready.
Yeah, that's a good point there. It's a good point, man. I'm not a total better, so I won't even have a link. I am a contrarian type guy, and I would look towards the under in there. That's just me, though. Everybody's gonna be taking the over standalone game. I'd be looking towards the under. I do think that Chargers defense did get a little bit better. They're still missing that cornerback over there, but no, he's kind of iffy. Jace could possibly come back this week, right? So Hey, they could be big over there, man. But it's a good game. Let's go to some more games, man. Let's go rapid fire style here. We got the Dolphins here laying 3.5 here. Steve, versus the Ravens. Didn't look too good versus the Jets, but they did cover for basically 95% of the world here. What do you think? Are the Dolphins fool's gold, or can they really ball over here?
Yeah, the Ravens actually were the most public play last Sunday. The second most public play last week was the Broncos. And I mentioned earlier, I liked the Seahawks, had them as a best bet, had them in our Pick 5 contest. I wanted nothing to do with the Jets. I did not fade the public in that game because Baltimore under Harbaugh, they won all their preseason game. He has the NFL record for preseason wins in a row coming into the year. And if you look back over the last 4 or 5 years, other than the overtime loss in Las Vegas last year, he'd blown out the previous 4 opponents on opening day. They were always like a touchdown favorite. So it didn't surprise for me to see him go in there with them. They didn't overlook the Jets, and the Jets have some real problems right now. So I'm not going to read too much into that Baltimore win. I thought Miami had a nice showing against New England. I mean, there's definitely a chance, Jay, that New England is just really down this year. They might be one of those teams that the betting markets haven't caught on to how much weaker they've gotten after the dynasty. Also, it's very hot in Miami. Joe Ranieri gave me an interesting take on that last week. He told me the visiting bench faces the sun, so especially in September, these afternoon games, it just bakes the opposing sideline. And obviously, New England only had 7 points, barely had 200 and some yards. So I think we have to be careful reading too much into the wins for either team last week. With that said, though, Miami getting more than a field goal here, and I do think they're an improved playoff caliber team. This is another one, like you said, you can see the favorite winning by exactly 3. And hey, look, there's about a 10% chance that an NFL favorite wins by exactly 3. So this line being at 3.5 kind of gets you leaning towards the dog all of a sudden.
Yeah, the Ravens, they didn't really look impressive to me. I know they beat the Jets. They won by 15. If the Jets probably had a real quarterback, they probably covered their gap. I mean, I know that the last touchdown was in garbage time, but it's Lamar Jackson and everybody else, in my opinion. I'm not a fan of the receivers over there. Whether he's improved throwing the ball or not, man, you gotta surround him with better players. And does he even fully care? I always say this, Steve. This is like just me psychologically thinking. When you don't want to give a player a contract, he's thinking about the years to come. Like, they want guarantees. They could get hurt on any play, you know what I'm saying, season-ending injury. I just feel like they may not give 100% sometimes. It's just me, though. I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson will go out there and half-ass it. He's not that type of player. But when you've been trying to get a contract and the team don't want to give it to you, it's like, all right, who else? Now, I might be trying to go to another team now, man. So maybe the people in the chat leaning Dolphins here. As the dog here, it's a tough game for me, Steve. This is one where it'll really show us, are the Dolphins for real, or are they, you know what I'm saying, did they just get they had a good week 1 here. I would lean the Dolphins plus the 3.5. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sold on the Ravens here just yet. And the Dolphins, a lot of hypes around them right now, Steve. Let's go over here to the streets of Cleveland. We got the Browns talking about those Jets. The Browns here laying 6 points versus the Jets. Do we trust Brissett laying close to a touchdown already, Steve?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mentioned how the Jets were the most non-loved pick all of last week, the most non-consensus pick with the Jets. The third most, actually the second one on Sunday, I mentioned this in my video at wagertalk.com, was the Browns were the second least loved team last Sunday. Public like Carolina. That was an honorable mention in that video. And, of course, the Browns won that game outright as a dog and led most of the way. So now you have them facing each other. The two teams the publics wanted nothing to do last week, but as you can probably imagine, Jay, and guess, they're leaning Cleveland here now because they won and the Jets look bad, like we said. So Cleveland looks like they're getting a little bit of public love. And they go from being a dog, pick them to a dog on the road to almost a touchdown favorite now. It seems like a little bit of an overreaction, but with that said, I mean, do you really want to get on board this Jets bandwagon right now? The one advantage we have as sports bettors is that we don't have to play every game on the board. They have to put a number on every game, but we don't have to play every game. And this just seems like maybe a good one to stay away from.
Yeah, it'd be tough, man. People in the chat saying I'm not touching the Jets with Flacco out there. Man, I'll tell you this: if the Browns do win this game, whatever, and cover, it'll likely be on their defense, in my opinion, man. So I'm not trying to trust Flacco, but do I trust the Browns in this point spread range? I don't, man. So why would you go with Flacco at the quarterback, man? To be like, in all honesty, Steve, what the hell are they thinking, man? Are they trying to lose on purpose? I don't know. I just feel like it's not. I don't know. It just, no one understands it. And then look, watch them lose the game by 3 points or something. They mess around and cover. It sounds crazy as hell, but everyone's on the Browns here, and the lines went from 6.5 to 5.5. I don't know. I can understand why. Let's just put it that way, man. Maybe the Jets look a little better this week, but there's no way in hell I'm betting it. I can tell you that. Let's go over here to the streets of Detroit, D-Town, like our guy Johnny over there, man. Might go ahead to the Lions. You got this line come down. So it opened up at -1, went up to 2.5. Now back down to 1.5 here, Steve. And the total has been showing some love as well. I believe opened up at 46, 44.5 looks like, but been hit all the way up to 48.5, 49. What you think about this game, Mr. Merril?
Yeah, I think we touched on this last week. The Lions last year were the best bad team against the point spread. They won only 3 games last year, but they covered 11, which is very unusual because about 80% of the time, if you win in the NFL, you cover. You know, we all talk about the point spreads and stuff, but it only comes into play about 20% of the time. Like normally, an underdog either wins outright, like we saw a lot last week, right? Steelers won outright, Texans won outright, Bears won outright. Like when the line is 7 or less, you really have to think your team can win outright if you're playing a dog, you know? So there again, if you like the Jets plus 6, 6.5, you better hope they're going to win the game outright because 85% of the time that's what happens. But I bring that up because the Lions once again last week, just like last season, lost the game straight up but found a way to cover. It's remarkable now. They've won 3 games the last 2 seasons, but they've covered 12 games. That's a net 9 games covered versus their straight up wins, which is very unusual. So it's a hard team for me to handicap for that reason because they're kind of bucking the trend. You know, they're not doing what should happen. Not a good team overall. I'm not sure the Commanders are any better. And, Washington came from behind to beat Jacksonville last week. On the surface, if you look at the stats, Washington did play decent offensively. Threw the ball. Actually, Wentz had a really good game. Your boy Carson Wentz, he played well, but they couldn't run the ball at all. And I'm still not a believer in Wentz. We'll see what he does on the road this week.
Let's see what he backed that shit up with, man. Hey, if Wentz takes our money, it could happen. I'm on the Lions in this one. I took money. I'm on the money line. If you like them 1.5, that's my play this week. I might not bet another NFL game, guys. So I'm not an expert, but I'm not sold on Washington. If there was the Jags, really probably should have won that game. What are we doing here? We're talking about Wentz having a good game versus the Jaguars, man. They were 2-14 last year. I see a lot of upside with the Lions here. I feel like they'll have a much easier day as far as obviously dealing with the quarterback. That hurts every time he didn't have a receiver downfield. He just took the ball and ran. Has a lot more speed than Wentz as well. I know Wentz can try to rush a little bit, but obviously they don't have to worry about A.J. Brown out there. You got some good receivers for Washington, Terry McLaughlin, and guys tight end as well. But I just feel like that Eagles offense is like high flying, and they were down by like 24 or 17 points, but still showing the fight to come back, whether the Eagles have wrote their game off or not. You see what I'm saying? The Lions still fall out of bed. And one of these shows I said as well, I could actually see the Lions losing that game by 3. It was pretty crazy that it ended up happening like that. Everybody that took the Eagles ended up losing. Deserved to win, though, but I like the fight from the Lions. I also like that I was watching. I was like, hope the Lions lose, and I hope the Commanders win. And that's exactly what we got. I got to go with my gut in this one and go with my same thought process. I'm on the Lions here, money line or -1.5, whichever you like. That's my best bet of the week. And it's going to be my contest play as well. Nice. The Lions. We run. And I'm a Leo. We run with them motherfucking Lions, man. The Commanders going to be 1-1 after this week, my guys. Anything else on this one, Steve, or you want to go to the next one?
Hey, man, it's for the last 20 years, the Redskins were my team in the 80s and 90s when they were good. I grew up season tickets in the D.C. area, so it's been very easy for me to give up on them when Daniel Snyder started to ruin them 20 years ago. And I bet a 1% interest left, and once they switched to Commanders, even though I'm wearing the burgundy today, I'm at 0% love. So let's go Lions, especially if that's going to be in our pick 5.
Yeah, no, I like that play. That's my best play of the week here, Steve. Like I said, not an expert, but that's my play, guys. Hey, tail it, fade it, whatever you like, man. It's up to you guys. Let's go over here to the streets of Jacksonville here. We got the Jags here getting +4. The Colts ended with a tie last week. If you took the dog, obviously you cashed, but they did end up tying the Texans over there. Texans surprised some people there. Now, what do you think, Steve? The Colts were supposed to be a lot better here in theory with an upgraded. I mean, who knows, Matt Ryan, but what do you think here? Are the Jags, can they bounce back, or do the Colts finally flex their muscle here and get it covered?
Yeah, I actually liked the Texans last week in that game, by the way, because I had them as a 5.5-point dog at wagertalk.com. That was one of my best bets for my clients. So glad they held on in overtime and got the tie because they were winning that game outright before that. Colts started slow, but not going to read too much into it. I just thought it was a bad spot last week. It wasn't necessarily an anti-Colt pick for the season, and they did throw for 340 yards. They put up over 500 yards of offense. Jacksonville, meanwhile, they threw the ball decent, 260 yards. I thought Lawrence looked serviceable. Wentz had a really good game because they couldn't stop him. So like you said, Wentz had a good game for the Commanders, but that was against Jacksonville, right, who gave up 7.5 yards passing. So Colts should throw the ball really well in this game. And in the modern NFL, if you think a team's going to throw the ball well, it's really hard to fade them. Total, though, Jay, looks a little short to me. I know we're talking a lot of sides today, but 46.5. If both teams throw the ball, like they're capable of doing, and both teams struggle to stop the pass like last week, I could see some points.
You know what? I remember something with Wentz trash ass too. They lost to them last year, didn't they? So look, everybody in the chat, so my guy Johnny said, I'll give you guys upset this Sunday. Take the Dolphins plus the points at Vikings plus 2. Other guys saying Vikings money line is free. That's Monday night. We'll get there, guys, on Monday. But they liking the Jags plus the 4 in the chat, man. Jags plus 4. They own these Colts. Steve, didn't they beat the Jags? One of their 2 wins last year was against the Colts.
Yeah, it was the finale. Remember? I think it cost the Colts maybe. I don't know if it cost them, but they definitely had to win to get in the playoffs, right? Yep. And Jacksonville was a 2-touchdown home dog and beat them 26-11. Yeah, so that was just 2 games ago. So a little bit of a revenge spot for Indianapolis. I think you can make that argument.
The road team has covered 9 straight games in this series, guys. Or no, 1 straight. The road team has won 9 straight meetings in this series here, guys. I know Jacksonville. So you make a good point there with the over there, Steve. Jacksonville's defense looks like it's very suspect. The offense looks better, right?
Yeah,
they can score some points. So that's why you lean into the over there. I lean to the Colts here. You know what? I'm probably not betting. I hate taking teams that's coming off an overtime game. I feel like that's a fade. You had to play a whole extra quarter of football. You see what I'm saying? So, especially in their case, that ended in a tie.
Correct.
So I would like to lean to the Colts. They do have revenge as well. Maybe there could be some there where they just don't play well in Jacksonville, or they don't, you know what I'm saying, where they maybe Jacksonville owns them. I don't know, man, because they have – I don't know, man. The home team has won the last 9. Sorry about that, guys. The home team has won the last 9 games, and this obviously with Jacksonville winning last year. So it's a tough one for me. I'd like to lean to the Colts though, but not something that I'm playing here. But they should look better this week. Let's put it that way. They should look better against that Jacksonville defense. Let's go over here to the streets of New Orleans here, Steve. We got the Saints getting 2.5 here. This line was at 3s, now down to 2.5. So some money coming in on the Saints. I'm not sure I agree with it, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that jumps out to you is it's a possible flat spot for Tampa just coming off the Sunday night win at Dallas, but they didn't really have to do much to win that game, right? So, and it is a divisional game on the road at New Orleans. So I don't really think Tampa overlooks this one. Saints are actually a team I played against last week as well. And the other best bet we had on the early card last week for my clients at Wager Talk, where we mentioned the Texans, also had the Falcons around that plus 5.5. This Falcon team held on to win outright. Or I'm sorry, almost. They blew the game also like the Texans. They were winning most of the game, lost by 1, but they still got the cover. So, point spread did come into play for both those dogs last week. New Orleans had that slow start, kind of turned things on in the second half as many teams did last week. I'm not sold on Tampa and Brady still. I think something's going on there. I think there's maybe some marital problems. And hey, look, as handicappers, normally I don't care what's going on in someone's household, but when it's a high-profile quarterback, I think you have to kind of pay attention to that, especially for a guy, Jay, that retired in the offseason, then comes back, is 45 years old. He said something earlier this year on an interview I heard. He's like, when I was 25, I lived, slept, breathed, football day and night when I wake up. And now he goes, as you get older, other priorities, family and all this. So I don't know. I mean, I think after a primetime game like this, by the way, Green Bay on deck for the home opener next week. This is a little bit of a flat spot. If it wasn't a divisional game, it'd be a huge flat spot. I wish this was like a road AFC game. Then I would really be looking to fade them. But I still think you got to be careful with Tampa. They look a little overvalued this year. Yeah,
that's facts right there. They did look they didn't look great versus the Cowboys, but I'll tell you this: the Saints. I look at Wentz like Jameis Winston, and he's coming off season surgery as well. Right. And guess what? Here, I'm gonna tell you, this is why I like it, man. You get the double revenge from last year as well, man. I'd lean the Bucks in this one, man. I hate Brady. I can't stand him, but I know that Godwin likely won't be in here. They do got a Julio Jones still. He looks good. You see what I'm saying? They still got some balls over there. Do have offensive line issues. The Bucks, I believe they lost their center, and then they lost one of their tackles as well, if I'm not mistaken. So, but this one, in my opinion, is Bucks defense versus Saints offense. I'm not. What's Kamara's status as well, Steve? Obviously, he's one of the main integral parts of the Saints offense as well. There's some question marks if he's a little banged up as well here. So the Sharps are all over this one. They're on the Saints at the home dog here. It's a tough game for me, I must say, man. But I know Tom Brady got a lot of shit going on. I hate the Bucks, but I'd lean to the Bucks in this one, in my opinion. I'd lean to them. I think the Saints still trying to put some stuff together here, especially with Peyton leaving. I think they're still trying to get used to stuff. How do you have to come back versus the Falcons like that, man? The Falcons look good versus them boys, and Jameis looked terrible in the first 3 quarters, Steve. So it's a tough game for me. I don't like forcing on toss-up games, man. Let's go over here to the streets of New York here, Steve. We got the Giants here laying 2.5 points versus the Panthers here. Giants looked good last week. The Panthers didn't look so good. Well, I mean, it was a close game. Probably could have won that game, but what do you think? The Giants as a favorite now, Steve, are they getting too much love now?
So I didn't even realize this. I heard this earlier today. This is the first time since 2016 that the Giants have a winning record at any point in the season. That's insane. You know, that means they've gone 0-1, I guess, every year since 16. I'd have to go look it up. That means they haven't been above 500 since 2016. This is the first time at 1-0. So that puts in perspective how bad they've been, you know, in recent years. I actually liked them last week in my 3-game sweep on the daytime card at Wager Talk. Giants was that third underdog I had. They were down early, fought back. It's a nice win. They've got Dallas on deck. You can make an argument this is a little bit of a flat spot maybe after the big upset win, winning record for the first time in 6 years, and the Cowboys on deck. But the fact that it's a home opener, they should be focused. And Carolina really struggled to stop the run last week. That's why the Browns beat them. Carolina got outrushed 217 to 54, 5.6 to 2.8 yards per rush. Now, I know this isn't the 1990s NFL where the rushing numbers matter, but you know, for a team that's got some quarterback issues in Cleveland, they keep running the ball like that, it's going to be effective. And I think you can make an argument the Giants ran the ball pretty well last week. 238 yards. They held the Titans, who are a run-based team, normally to 93. So I'm in my hot tub time machine, J Money. I'm going back to the 90s here. I'm going to use the rushing dominance for the Giants here. But that really jumps off the charts to me in this matchup.
Yeah, the Panthers they've lost 8 straight games, my guy. So I know that was gut-wrenching for them to lose on a game-winning field goal. But I'll be honest with you. I feel like I was on the Giants versus the Titans. I do feel like there's a little bit of upside to the Panthers. I'm not a huge Baker Mayfield guy as well, but I do feel like there's a little bit more upside to these guys than we really think, or that most people feel like. And I think that the fact that they kept that game as close versus the Browns as well really showed us that even with getting out rushed like this, Steve. So, and Baker Mayfield with some turnovers as well, he doesn't turn the ball over, they win the game. So this one will be obviously on Baker Mayfield. If you're fumbling the ball and throwing picks, you're going to lose. If he doesn't have a turnover or just limit to one, I could actually see the Panthers winning this game. Like I say, with NFL, I go a bit of a contrarian route. I know that everyone's going to be looking to take the Giants here. They upset because everybody was on the Titans. Then the Giants upset them. Oh, Saquon's back. Oh, Daniel Jones, he can ball now. New coach, all this. They were pretty fired up after their win. I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see a letdown here from the Giants, but do I have enough to take the Panthers at this price? Not enough, my guys. They basically need to win the game here, Steve. Obviously with that plus 2.5, but it wouldn't surprise me as well. That wouldn't surprise me. Let's go over. It's some tough games this week, Steve. I must say, man. Let's go over here to the streets of Pittsburgh, man. They took care of us last week. I was on them Steelers pretty heavy, Steve. But they're getting a point now versus the Patriots. You alluded to it earlier this show. How are the Patriots really regressing, starting to regress after being a dynasty for all those years? And Mac Jones back spasms as well. What do you think about this game, Steve?
Yeah, look, I'll have my NFL Fade the Public video will be up this Saturday on wagertalk.com, WagerTalk TV. I'll give you a little sneak preview. I mean, just starting to crunch the public numbers here, but one thing that always jumps out to me, Jay, is when there's a dog getting some public love. Because, in general, the public probably plays 60% favorites, right? So you need to see like 70 or 80% on a favorite to say it's getting pretty public. I mean, if they get over 50% on a dog, it jumps out to me. I'm seeing as high as 60, 70% on Pittsburgh right now. Now, they're a small dog. We'll see come this weekend, they might not be a dog no more. But the point is, the public is fading New England, and that's very unusual because, New England's been a very public team for decades. So we'll see if New England's time is really passed or not. Obviously, we talked about it earlier. They didn't look good at Miami, but red flag alert with Pittsburgh. They look like a very public underdog this week.
I was all over the Steelers last week. That was a huge game for them, guys. I would not bet the Steelers this week. And seeing one thing you got to see as well, especially in the NFL, how happy a team is after a win. That's why I'm not taking the Giants this week. I know that they're fired up and they were losing for a while, but they were pretty hyped up after that game. And I just feel like I like teams that's coming into practice that's pissed off all week, coming into the next game that's trying to bounce back more than a team that's hyped on themselves and probably feeling themselves a little too much. The Steelers, they put everything into that game. Yeah. And it went into overtime as well, right, Steve? So the Steelers, it was a huge game for them, a huge win. They came in very prepared for it. Won it that game. It was like a Super Bowl type of game. I could see them coming out a little flat in this one. It won't be the Patriots offense that does it, in my opinion. It'd be the defense showing, like, making Trubisky look like the Bears Trubisky or something. That's what I could really see in this game. And obviously they lost TJ Watt over there as well, one of their main pass rushers. So I'm not sold on Mac Jones either, and he's not 100%, but I do think this is one where Belichick just kind of works some of his magic in this one, man. And the Steelers aren't supposed to be that good this year as well. It's supposed to somewhat be a little bit of a down year. I want to take Patriots here, Steve. Could you talk me out taking the Patriots, regardless of the public and all that? Just situationally, I feel like the Patriots are the side in this one.
No, I mean, you're talking me more onto the Patriots the more you're saying those things, because I totally agree. I mean, first of all, let's put in perspective. I watched the whole fourth quarter of that Steeler game in the overtime. Mm-hmm. Not only did it almost go to a tie, I mean, so there again, like you said, they played a whole extra quarter. It was an emotional roller coaster. The Steelers are winning the game outright. Mm-hmm. Cincinnati scores with 4 seconds to go to tie the game. All they have to do is kick the extra point. They're going to win the game. The Steelers block the extra point, so it goes to overtime. Both teams miss a field goal. Cincinnati hits the upright on a 53-yard field goal to win the game and miss. And then the Steelers eventually get a kick with a few minutes to go. I mean, it was like 2 or 3 games in one. On top of that, it's a division rival. It's the defending conference champions on the road. And yes, it's the Patriots, but the Patriots don't have that allure anymore without Tom Brady. It's a non-division game. And then on top of that, you got a team coming off a bad effort with Bill Belichick in the locker room and on the sidelines all week at practice. So, yeah, I mean, this really looks like the play-on, play-against spot. And by the way, I should have mentioned at the beginning of the show, Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com, had the stat. Just playing on 0-1 teams against 1-0 teams in week 2 has been like 57% for several years now. So they do normally bounce back, and you could sure make a case this looks like a bounce-back spot.
Hey, my best bet is a 0-1 versus 1-0. I'm on that shit, Steve. I'm on that. But yeah, this is one where I feel like the Patriots, they look like a false favorite. I believe they're favored in the road here for a reason. They'll look, and I'm with you, Steve. 70% of the public all over the Steelers here in week 1 at the house. The Patriots are trash. I feel like the Patriots defense. Come on, Mike. We know you're going to like the Patriots, man. We got the biggest Patriots fan in the chat, man. My guy.
Now, I need to know if he's worried. If he's worried, Jay, then that's the ultimate jump on a contrarian sign right now. So we need to find out.
Yeah, I'm going to have a little conversation with manager. Now, I like the Patriots. It's on my short list. It's definitely on my short list there. Let's go over here to the streets of L.A. The Rams didn't look good in the first game. Did have extra time to prepare, though. The Falcons here. What do you think in this one, Steve? Do the Rams bounce back in a huge way and cover this 10.5, or can the Falcons continue to be a feisty underdog in this one?
Yeah, I mean, just to put in perspective how good Buffalo might be, is Buffalo had 4 turnovers. If you told me the Bills are going to have 4 turnovers last week, would you have thought they were going to win by 21 points on the road? Of course, the Rams had 3 turnovers. They kind of gave it right back every time, didn't take advantage. But yeah, Atlanta was a team I liked last week. Looks like a tough spot for him this week. Obviously, you're going to be paying a price, laying 10.5 with the Rams. It's kind of an ugly number because 10 is a very critical number, but hard not to see the Rams at least winning this game. And once again, if they win, they most likely cover.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Falcons look like they're not as bad as people think, man. I know that they end up losing the gun-reaching game. There was more. I think it's more on, like, that's one thing I can't stand about NFL. When teams feel like the game is in hand, they kind of just stop playing like, oh, we just care about getting a win. I noticed that. I mean, look at that Eagles game. They knew that they were going to win the game. They don't give a damn about covering your point spread ticket. So the Rams they're not a championship caliber team this year, in my opinion. only receiver they could basically throw it to was Cup. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Now, I know they got other receivers, but why was he the only one getting open? Obviously, Stafford, I don't know. I mean, he could be better this week, but he's not 100%, guys. Like we told you this, coming off the offseason injuries and stuff, the elbow, he's not 100%. And the Rams are a passing offense, right? He needs to be at 100% for them to be at their best. I'm not laying 10.5 with them. It should be a bounce back game from the Rams, extra time to prepare. I'm not laying the 10.5. I can't do it, guys. Let's go over here to the streets of San Francisco here, Steve. You got 9.5, laying 9.5 with the 49ers here. Seahawks coming off a Super Bowl, Steve. You know it. Everybody watched that game. And we came on here and told you on the show, there was a huge game for the Seahawks. They put everything into winning that game, guys. They're hyped up as well. They're going to have a huge letdown. Not so sure I want to lay the 9.5 with the 49ers, Steve, but the 49ers should be the right side in this one. Seahawks will probably get blown to dust in this game.
I like the Niners in this one. I like them here, and there's a few different reasons why. I mentioned how the Steelers were a public dog. Guess what? There's another public dog that's starting to pop on my radar this week, and it's Seattle. And what's so crazy about that, Jay, as I said earlier, the second most non-public play all of last week was the Seahawks. So there's just little intricacies I look for when I'm doing this public information. They go from being the second least loved team to one of the most loved teams within 6 days. That's a red flag. Obviously, any public dog's a red flag. And here again, we have a 1-0 versus an 0-1 team. And I think you can make a good case for San Francisco. They had a 10-0 lead in Chicago. They were about to go up like 17-0. Didn't take that opportunity, and Chicago came back to win. The Bears still had just 3.8 yards per play in that game. The Niners had 5.1. On the other side of the coin, I liked Seattle Monday night for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. It was a big spot for them at home, anti-public play. It worked. It was in our Pick 5 contest. It worked for us as well. This is the week you fade them now. A little bit of a fortunate win. Well, it was a definite fortunate straight-up win. They got outgained 7 yards per play to 5.4. They gave up 7.9 yards passing. Russell Wilson actually played well. Geno Smith is very serviceable. He's a great point spread play. He's been over 60% ATS. The odds makers normally do not correctly price him, but now I think that's not the case. And like you said, it's actually, even though this is a divisional road game, I think last week's game, Monday night against the Broncos, was more important for Seattle. So this looks like that 0-1 spot working against a 1-0 team with the Niners this week.
Yeah, that one was way more important, man. Maybe try to, let me see, what are they, 9.5? Yeah, 6.2 down. 3.
This was 10, by the way, yesterday. And it's down to 9.5. And there's about a 3 to 4% chance the Niners win by 10. So you're getting some value now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I see the 49ers coming in this one pissed. I know Lance didn't look that good, and that's probably why everybody's fading them. Oh, you lost to the Bears? Oh, hell no. They can't be laying 9.5, 10 points. I don't think we'll get the Seahawks' best game. They won't be turned up for this one like they were the last one. And they did lose Adams as well when probably their best defensive back over their safety. So he's going to be out for sure in this one. 49ers, in theory, should look a lot better this week. Get to practice, you know what I'm saying? Lane, hey, if you have to, put a Garoppolo in them motherfucker. But, hey, they got to do something. This one should get ugly. I think the Niners should take the Seahawks to Smack City, definitely on the short list. Let's go over here to the streets of Dallas. We're going to do 3 more games real quick, Steve, or 4 more games. Let's do Dallas Cowboys real quick. What do you think? Dak is out for probably 4 to 6 weeks. Is it easy money taking the Bengals here?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's really hard to make a case for Dallas. We don't know what we're going to get. Their offense looked terrible last week, obviously. No Prescott. He is the key. And we've seen him be out in the past, and their offense really drops off, right? So he is an important player. With that said, this has been a tremendous line move. I mean, this is a situation where the look-ahead line was going to be Dallas -1 before they played last week, and now it's 7.5. I mean, so you're talking about like an 8.5-point adjustment here because of the quarterback. Cincinnati's a team I think will regress this year. We talked about it last week, so I wasn't surprised to see Pittsburgh beat them. And like you talked about, that treacherous overtime game. And so this is like the NBA. You and I do really well at the contrarian attitude of the NBA, and one of the best angles there is you just play the team that's shorthanded, right? And one of the reasons it works is because the opponent overlooks them. I would have liked this better if Cincinnati had won the game, but it does concern me that they need a win. But, yeah, you're paying a premium at 7.5. If you're going to play the Bengals, I'd take them down on a teaser to -1.5. I could probably get behind that. Yeah,
in theory, yeah. The Cowboys defense could play a lot better in this game. Still not sold on Burrow. I can tell you that. Like Burrow's a good quarterback, but guys, you got to remember he had appendectomy surgery. You see what I'm saying? Was it an appendectomy or appendix? I'm pretty sure it was appendectomy. He had that in the offseason. Everybody that I know that's close to the situation it's not the one that he could be good in a few weeks. It's the one that's months. It's going to take him time to get back to 100%. He lost a lot of pounds. He's trying to gain muscles back. See what I'm saying? He couldn't practice or throw for a while, so I don't think that Burrow's in mid-season form. I hope that makes sense. I'm not betting the game. This will probably be one of the most contrarian looks of the week. Now, Cooper Rush, good God, the Cowboys got to sign another quarterback, bro. They got to stop this shit, man. Seriously, bro. Like, because Dak is injury prone. You got to have a better backup than that. But I'm not a fan of Jerry Jones whatsoever, guys. But this would be probably one of the most contrarian looks of the week. The Cowboys, especially as the home dog as well, didn't have to travel anywhere. Burrow, maybe not 100% still. It's a tough game, guys, I must say. But we know that everybody's going to be on the Bengals here regardless. Let's go over here to the streets of Denver here, Steve. It's pretty simple. Can they bounce back? It seems like they may have a lame duck coach over there, some head scratchers over there. But can Houston continue to play well, or does Denver bounce back by double digits?
Yeah, it's interesting because, technically, like you said, the Texans didn't win last week. It was 2020. I keep feeling like the Colts lost, because they were losing most of that game. They should have won. It ended up being a tie, but I still feel like the Texans kind of won last week on the other side of that. So you do wonder if they regress a little bit. Don't forget about the altitude also, thin air and altitude early in the season. These guys aren't conditioned well to start with. We see a lot of teams get tired in the fourth quarter early in the season. So I do think Denver's got a nice little home field edge here, something a lot of teams don't have anymore in the modern NFL. Is a short week for the Broncos, but look, they put up over 430 yards in that game. As I mentioned earlier, they should have won the game outright. It's a little bit of a misleading box score, or final score if you look at the box score. So, yeah, I could see Denver bouncing back, and I know this technically isn't an 0-1 versus 1-0, but it feels like it is.
Yeah, this 0-1, man. I'd like to see the Broncos bounce back strong, man. It'd be interesting to see. Obviously, there was a letdown. There was a bad game for them there. Now they come back to the house. That place is going to be packed, man. Their home opener there, and we'll see if the Texans can have that same success on the road there when everybody knows about them now. It's not going to be a surprise about the Texans now in their defense there. So let's see if the Broncos can bounce back. And now let's go over here to the streets of Las Vegas real quick. Got the Raiders laying 6 in theory, looking for a bounce back here. But the Cardinals also looking for a bounce back. So you got, in theory, bet on situation versus bet on situation. But the Cardinals really got smacked in that one. What do you think in this one, Steve? Can they keep this one within a field goal or 6 points, or do the Raiders take them to Smack City?
Yeah, I mean, both teams lost on the scoreboard last week, but the Raiders obviously looked more capable in the loss. They lost by 5 despite having a 3-0 turnover deficit. So you can really make an argument they could have won that game against the Chargers. Cardinals, meanwhile, they get blown out 44-21, and they actually had a 1-0 turnover edge. They didn't turn the ball over, and they still lost 44-21. So that's a real red flag for me. And, I think this is a Cardinal team you got to be careful with right now. And as you know, Jay, normally the Raiders don't have a lot of home fans because everyone travels to watch the other team play. But even though Arizona is a close trip, I just don't feel the Cardinal fans are going to make that trip. So Raiders should have a nice little home field advantage for their opener in Allegiant Stadium this week.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not sold on the Raiders. I know they got Devontae Adams over there, added a pass rusher, but I'm not too sold on the Raiders. But am I a big fan? Kyler Murray, man, this guy is one of the most cockiest guys, man. Like you said, they got him and the coach are butting heads and shit. Do I want to take stuff like that? No, I don't. I want to lean Cardinals in that one. I want to lean them plus the 6. I think they can lose their game by a field goal. That's what I see, man. But I don't know. I think the Raiders are too hyped in the betting markets, Steve. That's what I think. So ever since they got Devontae Adams, I think they're a little too overhyped in the betting markets. I think this line should be around where it was at first, around 3.5, 5.5, 6. You're paying a premium, in my opinion. Let's go over here to the streets of Green Bay. Last game we're going to talk about today here, Steve. Got the Packers looking for a huge bounce back. Can Rodgers probably all over them receivers, man. Do the Bears have a letdown spot here? They looked super hyped to win that game. May not win many more games this year, man. I don't think the Bears are that good. I think that was more on the Trey Lance being ass. What do you think? Can we lay 10 with the Packers here?
This reminds me a lot of the Seattle-San Francisco game, and I say that for a couple reasons. First of all, the Bears are looking like a public dog in this game, which is the Packers all of a sudden have no love from the public, which is very unusual. And then on top of that, just like the Seattle-San Francisco game, you've got a favorite who's coming off a loss, who has plenty of motivation to win big here. But more importantly, the dog and the Bears, just like the Seahawks, really, it was a misleading win last week. And we talked about that with the San Francisco game because The Bears only averaged 3.8 yards per play. They did not move the ball offensively. They were down 10-0 in the third quarter. It was almost a 17-0 deficit, and they somehow found a way to win. I think it's more that San Francisco found a way to lose, and I just don't think Green Bay is going to make the mistake. Now, with that said, I do have some concern with the Packers. They're shorthanded at receiver. Rodgers hasn't played much, but we saw this last year, right? They get blown out in New Orleans. They go on to have the best record the rest of the season. So I would take my shot with Green Bay if you're playing this one.
I was glad he looked so bad, man. I was all over them Vikings, man. Went to the favorite. I didn't give a damn. But
Yeah.
my guy says Rodgers is part owner of the Bears.
That's a good point, though, man. He is dominant. He brings that up, right? He takes pride in that. So that's a good point, though. That is a factor.
That's funny, man. He says, I own the Bears, and now you got one of the worst versions of the Bears as well. The Packers have won 6 straight and covered 6 straight games versus the Bears. Even last year, where it felt like the Bears might have covered it. Nope, still, Green Bay still covered it 11.5 as well, man. So I lean Packers in that one, man. I definitely lean the Packers in that one, Steve. Now let's get to this, guys. If you didn't know, man, Steve crushes the NFL, basically all sports. But specifically for my show, guys, so I'm saying, Steve, promo code SM49 if you'd like to get a 3-day all access pass for $49. I believe that's half off, Steve, right? So let the people know how you've been doing over there at Wager Talk, and let them know about the promo code and any best bet for the show today, my brother.
Yeah, I mean, just to put that in perspective, don't forget about baseball. 2-0 sweep the last 2 nights. So if you've used the 3-day pass the last 3 days, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, you've gone 7-0 with my best bets at wagertalk.com, NFL and baseball. This is a special offer for this show only, Jay. It's not going to be on any other video I do on Wager Talk. It's not going to be on any other page on Wager Talk. The only way you can get it is because you're watching right now. 3 days, all access, whenever you want to start it. We'll keep that going for a couple days here. So if you're watching the replay, you can use it this weekend for college and pro football. SM49 gets 3 days, baseball, college, and pro football, all access for just $49. Steve Merril, wagertalk.com. And I'll give you a free sample here for this weekend. Let's look at the Niners, minus the 9.5. We're going to fade the Seahawks, who I used last week. That's how the NFL works, man. You got to zig and zag. It's just so much like the NBA. You and I crushed the NBA just like we crushed the NFL, and it's not a coincidence because we use a lot of the same theories for these two pro sports, and I think it's a bounce-back spot for the Niners. The Seahawks didn't really deserve to win that game, and now it's a short week traveling after the big Russell Wilson revenge win, and I like the Niners minus the 9.5.
Yeah, I see a huge letdown spot for the Seahawks in this one, man. Probably for the Bears as well, man, but definitely for the Seahawks. You talking about a Super Bowl type of game. That's definitely something you want to pay attention to, guys. I feel like the Steelers and the Seahawks really have like the game. They put everything into their game one, and they won it. It came out victorious. Now it's time for a bit of a letdown and not take the next team so serious, guys. I hope it makes sense. So I love in NFL, I love taking 0-1 versus 1-0, even more 0-2 versus 2-0. So I just like the psychological edge. But I'm on the Lions this week, guys. It's come down to 1.5. People are gonna be on the Commanders. I don't care. I'm on the Lions here. I don't care what the record is, a favorite in it is. They're finna beat the shit out of the Commanders this Sunday, my guys. I like the Lions. We roaring with the Lions like the Leos. You see what I'm saying? Lions money line for me, best bet. Also, honorable mentions. Patriots minus the 1, Cardinals plus the 6, 49ers minus 9.5, Packers minus 10, Dolphins plus 3.5, and Colts minus 4. Those are honorable mentions. I just top leans right now. I've only bet one game, and that's the Lions on the money line. Got them at a pick before week 1 even started, so we're going official with the Lions on the money line versus the Commanders. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. NFL show with Shark tomorrow, college football show with Dave Koken on Friday, and then I'm doing the show obviously Saturday morning before the game start, college football, and Sunday morning before the game start, NFL. We will win, my guys. It's us against the bookies. Let's get some cash. We out.